You're listening to Scribble Talk, a podcast for bid and proposal professionals. My name is Baskar Sundaram, and with my co-host,
Ashley Case,
we will be sitting down with our industry veterans to share their stories, discuss their career, and learn how to make an impact in the industry.
Today's guest is Alan Howard. Alan, a 40-plus years proposal industry veteran, is a certified professional of the Association of Proposal Management Professionals. Alan joined APMP in 2009 and was appointed to the APMP UK Board in 2016 as the Certification and Apprenticeship Development Director, where he was heavily involved with the mentoring program and the conference training days. In his 40-plus years working on proposals, Alan has worked on hundreds of proposals, has trained and mentored hundreds of proposal professionals. Welcome, Alan, to Scribble Talk. Great to have you with us.
Thank you.
So, Alan, we're going to start way back in the beginning and discuss kind of where you were born, where you grew up, and where you went to high school and got your education.
Okay, so where I was born is a little fishing village on the east coast of the United Kingdom called Lowestoft. And I say it was a fishing village, and unfortunately in the start of progress and what have you, the fishing industry died. My family moved to London when I was quite young, so I've been based in London since I think I was about 5 or 6 years of age. School, okay, it's the school system in the UK is somewhat different to the American. I went to what's called a comprehensive school, and that's one down from a grammar school. But it means they took in pupils. I think the script was pupils of mixed ability, and you had the ability, if you were clever enough, you could move up through the various streams to get into the top stream, which was equivalent to what would be a grammar school. So I did that, I'm glad to say. I left school wanting to be an architect and wanting to earn the princely sum of £1,000 per annum. That shows perhaps I'm giving away my age now. But that didn't work for some reason. So I ended up as what's called a draftsman. So I was at a drawing board drawing schematics for electrical circuits and so on and so forth. That company, unfortunately, went to the wall, and they found me another job as an apprentice electrician, which I, did for 3 or 4 years and got my papers. And then after I'd finished that, I decided I'd had enough, and I joined the Royal Navy. And I went around seeing the world and what have you. I signed I suppose it's a contract you sign when you join the forces for 22 years. Wow. And after 3.5, they decided, because I had a previous injury playing rugby, one of my hobbies at that stage, that I was not fit for service. So I was discharged on medical grounds, which I'm afraid really peeved me. Is a polite way of putting it. So I spent the next 2 years wandering around the world, being a vagabond, which, looking back on it, was wonderful experience, and I'd recommend anybody to do it. But, perhaps in this day and age, it's not a done thing to do. But when I came back to the UK, back to reality, as it were, I joined this small company called IBM, which you may have heard of. Yeah. And I spent 22 years there, started as an engineer and became what's called a system engineer in IBM terms. And then around about 1992, I think, when IBM suddenly had big problems because these upstart Japanese were coming in, and they were selling the same machines at maybe a third of the price on a different model, whereas IBM was selling rental, and so you never actually bought a machine, you just paid a fee every year, year on year on year. the Japanese said, no, different model now. You can buy the machine outright, one-time purchase. And business seemed to like that. So IBM suddenly were suffering and they suddenly had to bid for work. So they took myself and I think 6 other system engineers. Now, why they didn't take sales, I don't know, but they took system engineers. And the term they use is deep dipped. And we were taken to their school in the depths of Hampshire in the UK. And we were introduced to things like NLP. And they taught us English. Would you believe, as a native English speaker, I could never understand at the time. One of the things was they taught us English. Strange. They taught us project management. They taught us interpersonal skills. All sorts of stuff like this, which at the time seemed very crazy to me, but looking back, I understand why now. I was then sent back to my branch, and I was now presented with what I didn't realize at that stage were RFPs to respond to, and suddenly I found something that I enjoyed doing. So that's where I started as a proposal person. As I think the vast majority of people now, up to now, although that may change in the future, I became a proposal professional by accident. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what, talking to most of my peers, that's the similar story, but in different ways. But nobody leaves school wanting to be a proposal person or a bid person. That may change now. We've got an apprenticeship scheme going, but it's still in early days, infancies yet. Hopefully it will ease the path for some people and give them a better start than I had, because I must admit the initial few years, I suppose, I was learning on the job. And as you learn on the job, you tend to make, I won't say mistakes, but you make errors. You do things not the right way. So you're not aware of what we now call best practice. You're not aware of the theory and all the other bits and pieces around bidding. You're not aware of the psychology of selling, because bidding is all about the psychology of selling, although you don't actually sell, you don't actually talk to your customer, but you do through your words. And from there, I suppose I got headhunted away from IBM to a Swiss company. They decided that they were going to give me Scandinavia as a territory. There's a huge leap there from being a system engineer to being the manager of Scandinavia. And again, lessons learned along the way. I learned the big lesson for me, that you never sell people, you allow them to buy. And there's a huge difference there. The difference being that in the 4 years I was doing it, I increased their turnover by a factor of 10. So from 300,000 per annum to 3.4 million per annum. And I never sold a thing, but I gave people a lot of options and a lot of opportunity to purchase. So, it's something you learn along the way, and you learn how to do it. And instead of being in their face, as it were, you say to them, okay, I understand you got a problem. Can I help? And then the trick is then to be quiet and listen. That's the other thing you learn, that your ears are very valuable when you're doing this. And you suddenly pick up on their problems, their issues, and you can offer them something better than they've got at the moment, which they will take because they actually want it. So from there, headhunted again to a fibre optic company, working in the Middle East. And then, unfortunately, we had the dot-com crash, and followed by the financial crash as well. I got made redundant 3 times on the trot. People were employing me for my contact book. I decided that I'm going to take my football and play elsewhere, and I've been an independent sole contractor for the last 15 years.
Yeah, what an amazing journey you've had. So it sounds like you've kind of seen some changes over the years, possibly from how proposals were done early on to how they're done now. What old-fashioned way of doing proposals would you say is better than how they're currently done?
What old-fashioned was better? Oh, crikey. When I started doing it, we used carbon paper.
Oh, wow.
For all those people who don't know, carbon paper is a way of making a copy. Yeah, I mean, I was working for IBM when Xerox came to IBM and offered them copiers, and they said, no, it would never work. But that's a different story. But some of the, I suppose, the better things in the past were we had more time. Nowadays, because you have technology, because you have word processing, you have all sorts of other things, people expect proposal people to be able to produce documents at the drop of a hat. And I often say to people, I have the beard. If you give me the 3 fishes and the 5 loaves, I'll do you a miracle. But a lot of people, you don't have the time factor involved now. You have to be much more disciplined than you ever were to get these things out in the time frame that you're given.
Right.
So that's the major difference I see.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely a different beast, right? So Alan, tell us 3 things that not many people know about you.
3 things?
Yes.
Well, I'm curmudgeonly. I don't suffer falls gladly. No, seriously. Outside work, I'm a model engineer. I'm an anorak, as we call it in the UK. So I build live steam locomotives.
Wow.
For fun. And all the other accoutrements that go with it. And I spend some of my weekends running around chasing a field, chasing these things around a track. But I mean, that's only the part where the important part, or the interesting part, is the actual research to get the thing right in the first place. Some of the other things, I mean, not people know about it now. I used to play rugby at quite a high standard until I broke my knee.
Oh, wow.
Well, okay, but in those days, I spent 7 weeks with my leg elevated in traction. And nowadays, I think they turn you in that hospital about 3 or 4 days. But they said to me at that time that I would never walk without a stick. And I'm curmudgeonly enough to say, oh, yes, I will. and consequently, I don't. But I can tell you when it's going to rain, definitely, because my knee tells me. So, I mean, that's 2 things. I can't think of a third off the top of my head, but okay.
Well, we've stumped you on one thing.
Yeah.
Oh, so last one, Alan. What is your most memorable proposal or capture effort?
Most memorable proposal. Gardermoen Airport in just outside Oslo in Norway. I was working for a Swiss company, Reichler de Massari, and at that stage there'd just been a huge fire in Frankfurt Airport, and it was to do with the infrastructure, because the infrastructure was not low smoke, zero halogen. It was just plain PVC. So the proposal that came out, obviously the authority in Oslo was very aware of what had happened in Frankfurt. There was unfortunately loss of life because when things burn, they give off toxic fumes. So the specification for the whole building was to be as non-toxic as possible if it ever caught fire. So, it's that was a challenge, to say the least, sourcing all the materials and what have you, and going through the various tests that were involved, going to visit the various labs. There was a lab in Denmark we used to visit to watch the way they tested materials for flammability, and so how long would it take for the things to catch fire? how long would it take for them to burn, and what did they give off when they burnt, and then building that into the proposal that we then submitted to the Norwegian Aviation Authority to actually win the project. So it ran to 5 volumes in the end.
Oh wow!
Well, because of all the supporting information.
Mm-hmm.
The actual proposal itself was very, very straightforward, very simple, but the supporting information very involved, very detailed.
Yeah, it sounds like a fascinating one.
At the time, no. Looking back, yes.
Going back to the APMP as a body, Alan, you joined in 2009, Alan, is it?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, 2009. And how did you know about the association, Alan? And when was your first BidCon?
How did I know about the association? Well, again, by accident, I suppose. By that stage, I'd been contracting for a while, and suddenly employers, or employers, clients, call them what you will, were asking for APMP certification. And by this stage, I mean, I'd been doing proposals for about 10 years by that stage. And, what's this APMP stuff they're asking for? What the hell's all this about? So, all right, to maintain my income, I went away and investigated and found out there's this weird association of people. And I then took my foundation course, Strategic Proposals. Graham Ablett, he's responsible, so you can blame him, and became a foundation certified person. Moved through that to practitioner. From there, I think I was at the UK conference in Heathrow, and I was approached by a lovely lady, Rita, who at that stage was the certification director, and asked if I'd join her group as a working group. And then within about 9 months, I found myself to be the chapter certification director, and then moved on to being the apprenticeship director as well, before I stood down last year.
Your timeline for the certification, Alan, you did foundation in 2009, was it?
Yep.
And how long will it take for you to do the practitioner, and from practitioner to professional?
I think I did practitioner in 2012, and then professional I did at the end of 2014, start of 2015.
Yes, so I knew that you mentored many candidates for the old version of practitioner, Alan.
Yep.
AQ. Was there any interesting experience, Alan, that you would like to share?
Well, I've got to be careful about confidentialities here. Yeah, I mean, the most interesting thing I found was that the structure of the old practitioner exam gave candidates, I won't say a problem, but it's something that I feel like I have to stress to people all the time, is you have to read the question. And people, even in forget certification, even in bidding and proposals, you have to read the question. And by the way, having read it, you then have to answer the question that's been asked. And the number of people who couldn't, I say could not, would not, or weren't able to actually do that without being guided was quite amazing. And it never ceased to amaze me that I thought that the questions were quite straightforward and written, in simple English, but people struggle with them. But okay, that's just folk, I suppose. What can I say?
Right. And from your experience, Alan, how many candidates you would have mentored, Alan, for the PPAQ over the years?
Ooh. I would imagine it must run into 3 figures. I couldn't put a number on it at all. When you're mentoring or coaching, you're also teaching. And one thing you learn very quickly is that to teach people, you cannot give them the answer. You have to lead them to find it for themselves. And that's one thing that I learnt, very valuable knowledge for me, was how to actually extract from people what their problem was, what their issue was, and then to guide them from my knowledge into finding the answer for themselves. Because if they find it for themselves, the answer sticks. If I just tell them, it doesn't.
And the apprenticeships, Alan, can you say a little bit more about it?
About
the apprenticeships?
The apprenticeship? Oh, crikey. Yeah. Typical government thing, I'm afraid. I think it took us something in the region of 15 months to actually get from start to finish. The first problem was getting an acceptable form of words that the government body running it would accept. And then because APMP could not be seen to be sponsoring it, even though it was our program, it had to be couched as a neutral program. It had to be couched such that anybody in the UK could approach and take it. So that took a little bit of wordsmithing. It's like a proposal, but somewhat more complex and involved. And then the government department we were dealing with, another stumbling block, did not understand just what the apprenticeship was about. So there was a constant to and fro of explanation about why we'd written certain things in certain ways, why we'd set the part of the apprenticeship is to set up something called an endpoint assessment. So the apprentice does a period of time doing various exercises. At the end of that time, to actually get the apprenticeship qualification, they have to have an endpoint assessment. So the endpoint assessment, as it says, should assess the knowledge and work they've done over the past year, 18 months, how long it's taken them. Much like a school exam. So you do the work over a period of time and then you get an examination about it. But getting that endpoint assessment through the government body was extremely difficult, because there's also finance involved in this, because nothing is for free. And so we had to find out, cost it all out, find out who could do it, and then find out how much we could get as an apprenticeship levy, because in the UK, if a company takes on an apprentice, they now pay something called an apprenticeship levy, and the apprentice qualifies for a grant of money to subsidise their apprenticeship through the time and through the endpoint assessment till they get the final qualification. So quite involved, dealing with people who didn't actually understand what we were doing, but we got there in the end, So the apprenticeship is now up and running, I'm glad to say, and I understand that there are several apprentices actually going through it as we speak.
All right. Yeah. So, Alan, we've drilled you pretty hard and you've shared some amazing stories and some great lessons learned. So we have some surprise rapid fire questions for you. They should just be fun and lighthearted. Okay. So let's suppose that, we're not quarantined in our houses and we finish this interview and you step outside and you find a lottery ticket and you end up winning 10 million, is it pounds where you are?
Yeah, real money. Okay, yeah.
What would you do?
What would I do? Oh, my God. Well, I mean, obviously, my kids, I'd make sure that I'd buy them a house each, I think. I think I'd look at buying or donating quite a lot of it to charity. I'm now at the stage of life, I'm happy to say, where I don't actually need very much, because I've got the house, I've got, been there, done that. I've climbed the career ladder and come off it and gone elsewhere. So, I mean, I retired twice already and couldn't cut it, so I've come back to do what I do now. But if I don't actually need money as such, So I'd probably give most of it away. Yeah, sure. I might change. I've got my car is 10 years old, so I might upgrade that to a newer car, perhaps. I don't know, but that's about it. I don't think, most of it I would give away, I think, because I don't need money.
Very noble and very practical.
Well,
so which animal would make the best type of prime minister if the animal kingdom ever rises up and takes over?
I think an elephant, actually. Well, solid, plodding, long memory, because you need a long memory in politics, don't you? And the word I suppose you're looking for is indefatigable, because, an elephant is a nice, big, strong, solid animal, and would manage to push its way through, the various challenges around, being a prime minister or being a politician. They need a thick skin, which an elephant has. You need a long memory, which an elephant has, or reputed to have. You need a lot of patience, which elephants display a lot of patience. And you need the strength, which they've got as well. So, that's why I think an elephant would be superb.
That's great. I love it. So if you could steal credit for any great piece of art, song, film, book, any artwork, which one would you claim?
Artwork? You must realise I'm a Philistine, so I don't understand art. Which one would I claim? I think perhaps the Sunflowers, Van Gogh.
Oh,
because
nice.
because it's simple, and it's got when you look at it, it's a direct message. It is what it is. There's no hidden messages in it. It's just a painting of sunflowers.
Yeah, it seems very in line with your personality, Alan.
Oh, thank you.
What's the right way of making tea?
Making teams?
No, tea.
Tea? Oh,
like tea
you're asking an Englishman? Oh, careful. Well, the biggest mistake I find, because I've travelled around the world quite a lot, the biggest mistake people make is not having boiling water. If the water is not boiling, the tea will not infuse. And I find this particularly in the New World, where people use, because of health and safety, they have hot water in these canisters, and it's way below boiling, and they wonder why the tea is weak and hasn't got much flavour, because the water they use is not hot enough, and it must be boiling to get the maximum out of the leaf.
Okay, so would you rather live one life that lasts 1,000 years or live 10 lives that last 100 years each?
Oh, philosophy now. I think possibly the latter one, the 10 lives of 100 each. Because if you live one life of 1,000, I would think you're going to get extremely bored. Because you're going to run out of things, you run out of new experiences. You would need, I think, personally, to live one life, have a rest if that's the right term, but to have a break away from it, come back and start again, and learn something different. I mean, that's the big thing I always find with my life. I often say this to people: I learn something new every day. And when I stop doing that, I think maybe I'll think about the coffin. But you need to learn. You need to keep the brain alive. You need to keep learning. You need to keep developing day after day after day. 1,000 years might be too much to do for that, I think.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. What kind of secret society would you like to start? Secret
society? Oh, my God. Well, how about common sense? Because that is very sadly lacking in this world we live in today. I see so many people now, and I'm sorry, I've got to be very ageist here, but I see it particularly among the younger generation. Perhaps I'm becoming a boring old bugger now, but people don't tend to use common sense. They don't tend to think about things they're doing, the consequences of what they're doing. If we had a secret society, let's have a secret society that promotes common sense.
Sounds like a good one. Okay, so last one. How many chickens do you suppose it would take to kill an elephant?
Oh my God. How many chickens would it take to kill them? Well, are these standard chickens or ninja chickens? I've got no idea. I would think if a herd, a flock of chickens were to attack an elephant, there'd need to be an awful lot of them, given the difference in size, given the difference in capability. You'd be talking about a large number, but I have to ask the question, why would a chicken want to attack an elephant?
Yes, I have no idea. You'd have to ask Baskar that one.
Fine, okay, that was his fault, is it? Right, okay. Fair enough. I have no idea, but it's if assuming it happened, if it ever did happen, the number would be quite large, I would imagine.
Yes, I would tend to agree with that.
He's especially made for you, Alan.
Thank you. I shall take you to one side after this, Baskar.
Alan, thank you. That was great. Alan, looking back, Alan, like 40 plus years in the career from where you started, your schools and here and there, who do you think are the most influential people in your life, personal life, and then looking into the career as well?
Influential in my life? Well, people I've met along the way. I've been lucky, unlucky, whichever you want to look at. 2006, 2007, I did a job as a chauffeur around London. And I had the privilege of chauffeuring Richard Branson around the place for a while. And he's not as you would expect him to be. He's an extremely nice man and very softly spoken, but extremely ruthless as well, which is a contradiction in terms, I know, but that's what he is. And if you simply observe, the way that he deals with people and the way he does things, it's a very, very good model for anybody. He never, ever raises his voice. He simply assembles factual information which forms the basis for his arguments, and he rehearses his arguments before he has the meeting. He used to do that with me in the car. He would bounce ideas off me, and then he would purposely try and get me to disagree with him, which is, it's a good practice if you're making presentations. Obviously, practice, but try and spark, say controversy, is that the right word? But interest and discussion, dialogue, such that it's not dry and such that it's interesting for both sides and produces a result for both sides.
And then career, Alan, both?
Career, I think I need to go back to when I first joined IBM. I had a manager there who was, for his day and age, he was quite switched on. He was the one who recommended me to go to the Deep Dip Proposal School in the first place. But he was although he was my manager, he was also my confederate as well. He worked with me rather than me working for him. We worked together, and that's a valuable lesson when we're talking about teams. When you manage a team, it's not you on your own. It's you helping everybody else to achieve everything they can achieve, such that the team achieves the overall target. So he was very influential in the way that he managed our team and the values that he displayed and taught me to use.
Thank you, Alan. What random stranger has had the biggest impact on your life, Alan?
Random stranger?
Yeah.
I don't know. There is this saying that a stranger is just a friend I haven't met yet. So, I mean, I've met plenty of random people with some very random and strange ideas. But being a pragmatist as I am, I'll tend to listen to people and either take it on board or ignore it as whatever fits. But I don't think I've ever met a random stranger who's influenced me very much at all.
Okay. What's the best piece of advice you've received from whom?
Again, go back to the IBM manager who said to me at that stage, remember, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth. Use them in that ratio. And it's very, very, even today, majority of what we do as professionals, you need to listen to your customer all the time and very attentively. Paraphrase what they say, go back to them and make sure you understand what they're saying. So listen, and then speak.
So, Alan, you've shared so much with us, and you've shared some really great advice that you've received from and learned from your mentors. Mm-hmm. But what's one thing you wish you had known when you began your career?
Ooh, the one thing I wish I'd known, crikey. The one thing I'd known. Well, I suppose the accumulated knowledge that I've got now. You know, it's when you're first starting out in life, when you first start your career, you're very enthusiastic and you're very gung ho and you want to get things done. But you learn along the way that, okay, there are times when you need to take a breath and step back. And one thing, I suppose, in common with everybody else on the planet, when I was younger, I'd wish I'd learnt that very simple lesson day one to I often say to people now, breathe between the words. And what I mean by that is shut your mouth, let your brain catch up to what you're thinking about before you speak. So it's learning that valuable lesson in life to take in information, process it first before you start speaking about it. And it's something, it's a common curse of youth, I suppose, because youth and enthusiasm will always want to answer immediately. So now, you need to stop and think a bit before you say anything. It's a life lesson that you learn the hard way, I'm afraid. Everybody goes through the same troubles, I feel.
Yeah, it's definitely something, I myself need to work on, I believe. If someone asked you to be mentored and they wanted to learn everything that you know, what would you teach them?
Oh, no. All right. Hang on a minute. If someone wants to be mentored, mentoring is done to increase a level of performance. Mm-hmm. Okay. I'm very involved in this at the moment because perhaps I should this earlier. I'm actually now at this moment in time taking a postgraduate course in coaching. So you've hit on a very topic that's very close to my heart at the moment. But if someone wants me to mentor them, that's fine. But they have to have a goal in mind. It's not my place to instill or to impose upon them a goal. They need to have a goal that they want to attain. I can mentor them to get to it.
Yeah, that's a great point, Alan. So it sounds like you've become very involved in this mentoring and coaching. Is there anything else that's up next for you in your life and career?
Well, I mean, I enjoy mentoring and coaching. I decided that perhaps I should go and get trained to do it properly. So I've enrolled on a postgraduate course, which is going to take me the best part of this year to complete. At the end of it, I will have a formal coaching qualification, and I can hang my shingle out, as you say in America, but you know, I can actually then publicize the fact that I am a professional coach and charge people for the privilege of being coached by me.
That sounds very exciting, Alan.
It's very, very absorbing, believe you me. I mean, it takes on when you're in bids and proposals, you skirt around psychology, whether you realise it or not. When you move into mentoring and coaching, you focus on psychology an awful lot more, and that's the important part, or the interesting part, is understanding the psychology of people, the psychology of what their drivers are, the psychology of the way they think and the way they act, and then guiding them through that maze of conflicting ideas that live in most people's minds.
Very interesting. I can see why you're drawn to that.
Well, I mean, the other thing, it helps if you have a background or a store of accumulated knowledge to start with. And again, it's not knocking young people. Young people don't make good coaches because they don't have the accumulated knowledge and the background to be able to offer constructive ideas, constructive solutions to people. Yeah, so it's something that you'll find most good coaches are, unfortunately, of a senior sort, like myself, and we get drawn to it because, well, as I say, I want to give things back to people now because I don't think I've got very much more in life that I want to attain, but I can certainly give much more back to people now by doing, you know, things like in the association and also coaching as well.
That's great.
So thank you so much, Alan, for your time today. Mm-hmm. It's really been a privilege to have you with us at Scribble Talk. Wish you all the good health, happiness, and please to continue to inspire, mentor all the bid and proposal professionals and everybody who comes in your way. Stay safe, stay strong, and stay healthy. Thank you, Alan.
Thank you very much, Baskar.
To our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. Please visit batchuscribble.com/podcast to listen to this episode and check out any of our other previously recorded episodes. If you've enjoyed today's interview, don't forget to subscribe, review, and share the Scribble Talk podcast. We hope you'll check out our next episode where we interview another industry expert and special guest. Until then, it's Ashley Kays,
Baskar Sundaram,
signing off.